I was attached to the World Juniors when I was young, and just seeing Canada winning golds and being so successful for so many years. It was a dream to make it to the big leagues and be there, but it's another dream of mine to, hopefully one day wear Canada on my chest and perform for this awesome country.
Welcome to episode 307 of Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast. I'm Joe McFarland. It is award season, and they are coming in fast and furious. We'll start with the Canadian Baseball Network's annual All-Canadian College Teams. The first team was unveiled this week with Vauxhall Academy alum and Sylvan Lake Gulls hurler Ty Boudreau, as well as Dogs Academy and Okotoks Dogs catcher Jacob Wroblewski making the cut. With the three teams now being finalized, we've put all the WCBL connections into a story for both the Alberta and Saskatchewan Dugout Stories websites. And a friendly reminder, the annual ADS All-College Team announcement will be coming soon, as will be the inaugural SDS All-College Team. The Baseball Alberta Awards are about a week away, and the organization continues handing out some of its hardware early. In the last week, the Off-Field Manager Awards went to Pauline Theriault of Smoky River in Single A, Tammy Regarney of Edmonton in Double A, and Stephen Belzile of Sherwood Park in Triple A. The 14U Girls Player of the Year is Calgary's Era Simons, who hit .412 with 10 RBI and picked up a win on the mound as Alberta claimed this year's 14U Western National Championship. And the Murray Service Umpire of the Year is Edmonton's Devin Redicott. The annual awards banquet is set for November 23rd. You can go to baseballalberta.com for more. Also on November 23rd is the Little League Alberta Coaching, Training, and Leadership Conference in Calgary. Several workshops are planned, as well as the Little League Alberta Awards Banquet. Head to littleleagueab.ca for all the details. And on the national scale, Baseball Canada handing out its annual awards this past weekend in Halifax. Congratulations to all of the winners there. While no Albertans picked up any of the awards, Baseball Saskatchewan did take home Province of the Year. We'll have a story up on the SDS site in the days ahead on that. Speaking of Baseball Canada, they had a late Wednesday announcement about successful bids for national tournaments over the next couple of years. Calgary will be hosting the 19U Women's National Championship in 2025. Now, this is an age category change from the previous 21U women's event. A little news out of Major League Baseball, as Alejo Lopez is no longer a free agent. The Dogs Academy alum who made his debut in Cincinnati a few years back and spent last year in Atlanta's farm system has signed on with the Athletics. Speaking of free agency, Calgary's Michael Soroka is garnering some interest after his move to the bullpen. Worked out well with the Chicago White Sox last season. We're sure a few teams are kicking tires as they look to bolster their bullpens heading into 2025. Congratulations to episode 194 guest and AHP Academy product Amar Mahmood, as he helped Team Pakistan claim the Baseball United Arab Classic recently. And on the commitment front, shout out to episode 295 guest and fellow AHP product Dom Morgan, as he's heading to Crowder Community College. Meantime, Vauxhall Academy product Seamus Ryan is also heading stateside. The junior national team alum and Calgary native has signed on with North Dakota State University. On to this week's guest, and he needs no introduction, but we're going to give him one anyways. Erik Sabrowski's journey to the majors has been well documented, and we've been lucky enough to follow that journey for a few years now. This season, it went to another level, though, as he got the call up to the big leagues, becoming a big part of the Cleveland Guardians bullpen during their run to the playoffs. He also made some impressive appearances in the ALDS and ALCS. We've talked a ton about the statistics, but we're looking forward to getting him on the show. He is back home in our province again and received a hero's welcome in Edmonton, including getting to see his beloved Oilers play a few games, and even was a part of Wednesday's Sportsnet broadcast with Gene Principe. It's been a big year, and it's going to get even bigger for the 27-year-old as he's set to get married in just a few days. We talked about all of it in this fantastic conversation. Here is St. Albert Minor Baseball and Absolute Human Performance alum, AHP Academy coach, and Cleveland Guardians reliever, Erik Sabrowski. Erik, welcome back to the show. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Let's go back to earlier this season. You start the year in AAA. Did you think that a call up to the majors was going to happen a little sooner than when it did?
I wouldn't say so. It was my goal. It was my ultimate goal for the year. And what happened along the way wasn't really as planned. And it was my ultimate goal for the year, but there was no like set date in my mind, whether it happened this year or 2 years or never, right? Well, it wasn't really up to me.
you start the year in AAA in Columbus and then you get sent down. How do you handle that? Because it probably wasn't part of the overall plan, was it?
No, not at all. My manager at Columbus, Andy Tracy, he actually had some good words for me. As nice as you can be when you're sending a player down. And he was like, hey, man, like, you're still a big part of this organization's plans. It's not happening for you right now, but, you have a few options. You can go down and sulk and kind of let this dig at you and affect your performance, or you can probably go show them why they were wrong. He knew that I thought they were wrong. So I took that advice and kind of lit a fire in me, and it was probably exactly what I needed.
Looking back on it, do you think you knew what you had to work on to make it so you'd be able to get back as quick as you did, or was it just a matter of like fine tuning a couple of quick things and then away you went?
It wasn't as much physical adjustments that needed to be made. It was more mental. I was probably giving those AAA hitters a lot more credit than what they were due. Don't get me wrong. There's some unreal talent in AAA, and probably most, if not any player that's in a AAA lineup on a given day can at least contribute in the major league level at some point. But I was struggling with the robot strike zone, and I was just afraid of every pitch that I threw was going to get smacked, and that is no way to pitch.
What was the unlock in your eyes that allowed you to get back into double A and then dominate and then take that step up and still continue to do what you were doing in double A, now in triple A?
I think it was just repeating the level again and being a little more familiar with some of the guys on the other teams, being familiar with I have a lot of buddies who repeated at Akron this year. So it was a locker room I knew, it was a bunch of guys I knew, and we just really had fun. We were a really good team in Akron, and it was focusing less on, the stresses of performing in a game and more just, it's not something I really thought about just since we were having a lot of fun, and things really did go my way in Akron. So I'm fortunate for that.
And then they kept going your way. When did it start to feel like that call up that you were envisioning at the start of the season was going to become a reality?
20 minutes before it happened, 30 minutes before it happened. And I actually got a little mad at myself because, so, there's the stories of getting called up. You get brought in your manager's office after a game. He tells you you're going up, you come out, and, the locker room's excited for you, and you get to celebrate a little bit with your friends. It was that night we were playing Gwinnett, and there was probably three or four situations in the game that I felt like I was probably the guy for. And my name just never got called. And I was sitting there thinking, at first you're like, that's weird. I wonder what's going on. And then it's like, oh man, maybe this is it. So then after the game, I'm sitting in the locker room, like trying to make sure, Tracy knows where I'm at. And he walks by me a few times, nothing. I see him getting food and nothing. And that's when I kind of went home. I'm like, you idiot. Like, don't get ahead of yourself. It'll happen when it happens. Like, don't try and, there's something to be said about manifesting your goals and stuff. But like, that was me just trying to grab it out of thin air. And then, yeah, he called me at midnight that night and said I was going up. And it was a funny, like, couple hours of emotions, a bit of a roller coaster, I'd say.
I was going to ask about that because everybody has that moment of, as you mentioned, like some of it goes viral and you see the hidden camera or whatever the case may be. It sounds like you didn't have really that moment. It was like, hey, it's midnight. We just finished a game. By the way, pack your bags and get going.
Yeah, I was, my fiance Renee was in town, and so was her dad. And, with baseball, our hours are a little skewed. So midnight for us is probably more like 8 p.m. for anyone else. So we were just playing cards in the hotel room, watching some highlights of the big league games that day. And when my phone rang and I saw the name that was on it, knew what was happening. Renee saw the name and she started jumping up and down, and her dad got it on video, or at least I think he did. And, yeah, then it was, hey man, pack your stuff. You're going up. And it was your car's picking you up at 3:45. So that was a very quick turnaround. Our flight was at 6:30. I managed to get an hour's sleep in the airport, and then it was off to Cleveland.
Unbelievable. So who else is on the call list when you get that call at midnight, knowing that there's a few people who might be sleeping at that particular point?
Yeah. His mom, dad, my sister, Renee's mom, her brother, two of my coaches from Cloud County, Taylor Burns, of course. There was quite a few phone calls, and then yeah, like I said, oh man, it's 1 a.m. We got to start packing.
So what's the emotional impact like when you have that phone call and you're now knowing, hey, I'm gonna probably have to run off adrenaline for a little bit here?
That I've done before. When I got called back up to AAA from Akron, we were in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and similar thing. They told me before the game that I was going up to AAA, so I didn't dress. I went home. The Oilers were actually playing the Stars, so worked out well for me in the playoffs. But yeah, then same thing, like flight at 6 a.m., pitching a game that night in the ninth inning at 10:30. Like so, it's something I've been familiar with, so I wasn't too nervous for how my body would feel. It was more just trying to, contain the emotions of going from Gwinnett, Georgia to the big leagues. Like in Gwinnett, there was 28 people in the stands,
Mhm.
like maybe even less. It was, and then, you go to Cleveland and it's a day game on a Sunday and there's 34,000 strong.
Talk about that turnaround and also the emotional up and down of I seem to remember you getting up in that first game in a Cleveland uniform, getting yourself warmed up, watching the offense kind of go off when you thought you were going in as a cleanup guy, and then you had to sit for, a week.
Yeah, that actually happened twice at home. Yeah, the first time was like it got to the point of like, you tell the bullpen coach you're ready to go in. He flips the towel and the dugout knows you're ready. And then yeah, we scored a few runs, ended up winning the game, which was nice. And then another time my name got called, and before I even got halfway up the steps, I think we hit a home run, and it was same thing. Sabrowski sit down, and one of the other monsters in that bullpen, whether it be Heron or Smith or Gaddis, were up pretty quickly.
Talk about those monsters for a second. Like, you're walking into one of the best bullpens in major leagues. Is it a little overwhelming to think that you're a piece of that puzzle in the early going, or walk us through the emotional side of, okay, I got to soak all this in and be a sponge amongst all these great relievers?
Well, it probably seems obvious, but getting called up to the majors is the ultimate confidence boost, right? Someone thinks you're worthy of pitching in major league games, and then to up it up a notch, someone thinks I'm worthy of being in that bullpen. And it was less being scared to perform and just being like, no, someone thinks you belong here. All you got to do is perform. You got to throw the ball over the plate. It can be a simple game at times, and I think the confidence boost of all of those factors really helped propel me through September and into the playoffs.
So you make your debut. It didn't start exactly according to plan, at least the first pitch was concerned. What do you do to get over that? Because you and I have talked, I'm a slow pitch pitcher. If I have one bad pitch, the whole night goes sideways in a hurry. You have, 34,000 people watching you going, you better not mess the next one up. How do you collect yourself and go, God, I just got to get this one over the zone?
I think I lean back on some of my experiences from Akron of just having fun and not putting too much pressure on yourself, and knowing that as a pitcher, you're in the driver's seat. You throw the pitch, the hitter is really on defense. He's got to react to whatever pitch is coming. He's got to put a good swing on it. And so, yeah, the first pitch hit the backstop, but kind of had a little laugh with myself, almost like, you just did that. It's no one dreams of their first pitch in the backstop. I think it's going to be an amazing story for the rest of my life. But in the moment, it was get the ball back, or a new ball back, obviously, and then kind of have a little laugh with myself, and then it's time to lock it in. It was when I was 3-0 to the first batter where it was a little more intense of, okay, it's time to get going. I've had walk issues in the past, and
Mhm.
that's something that I think has been my biggest issue as a pitcher in professional baseball. And kind of said to myself, like, you are going to give up a home run in the big leagues before you walk your first batter. Like, there's no chance you're going to walk him. You're going to throw these next however many pitches it takes for him to pull him and play or strike him out. You're going to throw him down the middle. And worked out for me. I think it was 3-0 a take, 3-1 foul, another 3-1 foul, and then managed to swing over top of the slider. And, you know, I'm so fortunate for it to happen that way.
The inning ends, you can see the emotion on your face. Then you get the interview afterwards, a very emotional interview. And I even texted you afterwards and said, like, that was cool to watch. In the moment, how emotional is it though? Knowing the ups and downs of what it's been like and knowing that you're this close and then have it taken away and then have it this close again and to get it taken away, finally getting to that ultimate goal. What did it mean to you to be able to throw in that MLB debut?
Yeah, the all of the emotions, all of the memories, good and bad of the rehabs, the stints in double A, triple A, probably, they went through my mind pretty quickly. But the thing that stood out to me most was I couldn't stop. Like the list was endless of people who impacted me in such a positive way. Like whether it be, a trainer in high A or a cook at the facility in Phoenix, like people who were excited to see me. I knew who were excited for me when I made my debut and then just, my family, my support system, just knowing that they were also proud of me and that they were just as excited as I was and probably just as emotional as I was in that moment. It all came in a bit of a rush as you saw and might have shed some tears, but it's good TV.
Well, and it's good to show the human side of it too, because I mean, everybody knows the story, two TJs and everything else that goes along with it. You've got a wedding that you're planning for, all these things kind of come into play. Game two is in Dodger Stadium. You've got a World Series contender on your hand, and you manage to keep them at bay. You put a 0 up on them. How do you keep your emotions in check against a really good team like that?
Well, to keep going back to some earlier points, like it's just learning not to give the hitter too much credit, right? It's corny, but Miguel Cabrera won a triple crown. I'm not sure what year it was. He hit 330. He got out 67% of the time, right?
Mhm.
They get out more than they get on. And it's just knowing that the odds are probably in your favor if you throw the ball over the plate. And it was such a rush to run out to that mound at Dodger Stadium. I think it was the third inning. It was a little quicker than any of us in the bullpen had hoped to get up, but it was like, man, yeah, there's 50,000 people in here, but I'm the one in control. And I can really choose how this will go for me. And I was able to keep the excitement in check. I actually did throw a pitch to the backstop against Otani. So, started first two outings, two pitches to the backstop, but it was great. It was such an atmosphere. 50,000 people on a Saturday night. Like who had it better than me in that moment, right?
Well, and you've had a few of those moments. I mean, you think about, putting up zeros every single outing. You had a 0 ERA going into the postseason. Like, what was key to your success in your eyes, keeping that even keel, not getting too, I'll call it superstitious about, hey, when does the shoe drop and I give up a couple of homers or whatever the case may be.
I'd be lying if I said that wasn't in the back of my head a few times. There was an outing in St. Louis where I walked Paul Goldschmidt and then gave up a single to Arenado. And there was probably a little bit of me who was like, damn, maybe this is it. And then the guy hits a missile right at our shortstop, and Arenado, for some reason, doesn't run to second. And on a play, he probably should have been safe at second. He's out. And I was like, oh man, I got some luck on my side. Maybe can say I've earned this. Maybe that's reaching too far, but it was the ability to kind of separate outings and be like, yeah, I did a good job. What can I do next? How
Mhm.
can I, even you put up a 0, but there's things you can improve upon. I remember against the Dodgers, I don't think my first pitch strike, ratio was that good. And maybe you can drive yourself mad thinking like that, but I'm of the mindset that if you're not trying to get better, you're getting worse. And there's always something you can do to get better. And it can be as simple as, throwing a couple more strikes, or it can be as, major as remapping an arm path. But there's always something you can be doing to get better. And it was I think I did a good job of separating outings and not getting ahead of myself.
How fun was it being part of a team that was in the midst of not just a playoff run, but a division title run and getting a chance to not just be taking part in your first couple of months in the majors, but also getting to pop some bubbly along the way as well?
Yeah, that was awesome. That was, you don't dream of the locker room celebrations when you're a kid. You dream of winning it all, and unfortunately we came up short. But man, those celebrations, like, those are addicting. Just getting to getting to act like a child for a little bit and spray, your manager with champagne, or spray a future Hall of Famer like Jose Ramirez with champagne. Like, that is awesome. And I'm very lucky to be in that situation. I'm also lucky that we had some of the veterans that we did on our team, like Austin Hedges and Matt Boyd and Alex Cobb, who did a good job of making sure that I knew this wasn't normal. Cleveland, we were a very, very close team this year. We had fun. Winning definitely helps with all of that, but I think there was some greater there than just winning. And like I said, they, reminded me to make sure I knew this wasn't normal, and that hopefully when I'm a veteran in this league in 5 or 6 years, I can help create a clubhouse culture that mirrors that one, because I don't think there was very many clubhouses ever that were tighter and had more fun than we did.
I'm glad you brought up Hedges. So I'm a big Chris Rose rotation listener, and
Yeah.
he's one of the regulars on there. And I've come to really enjoy listening to his thoughts and insights. I have no doubt in my mind he's going to be a big league manager before too long. Just the way that he speaks and the leadership that he seems to emanate. Take us inside that dugout or inside that clubhouse with Austin Hedges. What is he like?
Oh, and, that's Mr. 69, right? As you probably heard on the Chris Rose show. He's goofy, but when it's time to work, like, he's a pro. He runs. So before a series, we'll do like a bullpen rundown where the bullpen will get in a room together with the pitching coaches, and we'll go over the other team's lineups, and he runs those. Like, we have Carl Willis, he's managed or coached like 3 or 4 Cy Young winners. He's been in the league forever. He's seen it all. And Austin Hedges is running those meetings. And that wasn't lost on me of how great of a leader he was, and how prepared he was. And he did an unreal job. All our catchers did. They did an unreal job of relaying the pertinent info to the bullpen all year. And it definitely showed with how well some of those guys threw for 162.
You mentioned Carl Willis. Have you been able to ask him about his days in Edmonton?
We mentioned it a little bit. He said he lived in St. Albert, and asked me if a few places were around, and he was happy to hear that Remax was still up and running, and then finally got new turf. Because I think when he played, it was still natural grass, but a few years later is when that turf came in.
Yeah, there's a lot of history with that man in the Edmonton area with the Trappers. And I want to ask about your skipper. He's the manager of the year. He's a guy that a lot of people maybe have wrote off because he's so new and didn't kind of earn his stripes, quote unquote. But what did Stephen Vogt bring to that dugout in that clubhouse?
I think the fact that he had only been, a one full season removed from playing in the majors was a great asset for him. He knew, like, he's been in a bunch of locker rooms. There's a reason a guy like him played for so many years. Like, I'm sure he would tell you he wished he would have probably hit better through his career, but when a guy like him can keep getting contracts and being playing a big role on lots of teams, it shows you that he's a good people person. Shows you he knows his preparation is good, his routines are on point, and just knows he knows how to, or it shows you he knows how to interact with others. I think that's a good part of being a manager. Just feeling the temperature of the room, knowing when the boys need a little kick, knowing when you need to lay them off a little bit. And he was so good to me. Funny story from Kansas City after my debut. We lost. It was too bad, but I'm walking down into the tunnel, and he taps me on the shoulder, and we kind of stand on the top step for a second, and he's telling me, how proud he is of me, and the story that I have was a special one. And before I know it, I'm giving him a hug. And and then all of a sudden I realized, I'm giving him a hug, and I kind of just back away, and we just kind of laugh it off, and we haven't talked about it again. But that just shows you how, personal he is to the players, and how he's a guy that you can really connect with.
Absolutely. One more guy I want to ask about. You mentioned him, future Hall of Famer Jose Ramirez. What is that guy like in the room?
He's awesome. He is one of the most competitive people I've ever met. He actually bought a old like N64 style Mario Kart machine for the clubhouse, kind of like a one you see in an arcade.
Yeah.
He is constantly challenging people to play him, and he will always wax them. Like whether he's, winning wire to wire, or sliding in back from third place, like he will win. And I think that's a bit of a microcosm of who he is as a baseball player. Like he wants to win. He wants to beat the other team. He is a pretty laid back guy. And but when it's game time, like when the lights turn on, he flips a switch and he goes into a different gear.
It was definitely fun to watch the playoff race. What was that atmosphere like in the different ballparks that you got to play in during the course of that run to the ALCS?
Oh man, it was awesome. Like Detroit hadn't seen playoff baseball, I think, in 10 years. So, 40,000 people who were raring to go. Cleveland, best fans in baseball. They're smart, they're knowledgeable, and they get loud. We have probably one of the smaller ballparks, but the noise difference between other places, you can't really tell a difference. It gets loud there, and they are passionate. And then of course Yankee Stadium. That was a different beast in itself.
You mentioned the fact that you didn't get to where you wanted to be. Obviously, you want to win the World Series at the end of the day. You obviously want to be a full season MLB or next year. Before you made that drive home, what was the message with exit interviews or whatever the case may be for things to work on in your own minds that you can be the regular everyday guy that you need to be heading into 2025?
Probably just consistency. Like I went on a hot streak in September and pitched all right in the playoffs, but if you look at my game logs from AAA, there's a good month, a bad month, an okay month, a good month. Like trying to see what I can do, mentally to make sure I can stack those good months on top of each other, because you don't there's not much room for error in the big leagues. The hitters are better. They definitely hit the ball harder. And then just as from an internal standpoint, Cleveland's trying to win. If they don't think you give them the best chance to win a ball game out there, like there's plenty of guys in levels below you who are raring for their shot, and they might take a look at. So one quote that stuck with me, I don't know who said it, but it goes like, it's hard enough to make it to the big leagues. It's harder to stay there. And that's something that I've taken into this offseason with all my preparation and all of my, strength training work and throwing, is like, yeah, you made it. Let's stick there, because, you owe it to yourself to keep going and to keep standing on top of things.
Couple on the Alberta and Canada side of things. Has the thought entered your mind about the possibility of a World Baseball Classic with Erik Sabrowski in the bullpen for Team Canada?
That would be a dream. Um, like a lot of young kids in Alberta, I was attached to the World Juniors when I was young, and just seeing, Canada winning golds and being so successful for so many years, it was, it was a dream to make it to the big leagues and be there, but it's another dream of mine to, hopefully one day wear Canada on my chest and, perform for this awesome country.
On the flip side, and like I said, you made the drive back with Renee back to Alberta. You received kind of a hero's welcome. You got to take in an Oilers game. You got to be part of the pregame show with Gene Principe as an example. What's it been like from your perspective to be sort of the hometown kid, do good, and get that hero's welcome, and to get that kind of feedback back from the hometown crowd?
Well, that was an honor, growing up being an Oilers fan my whole life, just for them to want to have me out to a game. That was special, and we had a blast, and they treated us well. One of my favorite takeaways from this whole, big league journey has been just the amount of people who have reached out to me, that I don't even know who are saying they're following along with the journey. They're rooting for me. Cleveland games are appointment television, and just hearing from friends that, yeah, man, my dad actually texted me to remind me that you were pitching, or things like that, of just, how many people that I guess I've impacted in a positive way who are rooting for me, and I definitely feel the love in Edmonton.
How important is it for you, in your eyes, to be able to give back to the baseball community here too? I know during the off seasons you made your way back over to AHP as an example. Dom Morgan was sharing a story about how he got to catch a bit of a session with you, and he said, yeah, I frying pan the first couple of throws, like just no idea, right? Like, how cool is it though to be able to give back in that way, and to show the guys that, hey, there is a path to get there if you want it?
Uh, I just hope to show, hopefully, or hope to show these young guys that it's possible. Someone who was big for me when I was younger was Ethan Elias.
Mhm.
He was working out in the same place as I was, and it was just like, man, wow, you can play professional baseball and be from Edmonton. And at the time, professional baseball probably seemed out of reach. But the fact that, someone had made it that far was opened my eyes to, the possibilities you have with baseball. And, it was hopefully getting to a college, then hopefully getting to a Division 1. And, I managed to skip that and get drafted. But my goal is to show, hopefully, the next Erik Sabrowski that this is possible.
Had a lot of big dates on the calendar in 2024, but you got one still to come here in about a week. How excited are you for November 23rd?
Yeah, our wedding is going to be awesome. It's been a long time coming. The stuff that I've put Renee through on this baseball journey, I'm very lucky that she's still with me. From flying cross country on a moment's notice to packing up apartments and driving 5 hours. She's a superhero, and I'm very fortunate to have her by my side. And I'm really looking forward to getting to call her my wife.
How concerned are you that that video of the call up is going to somehow make its way into the wedding party at some point?
It might. We'll have to see what ideas her dad has, but I think she might be the one that vetoes it due to how excited she was. No concerns for me.
Very cool. A couple more for you. Looking back on 2024 from a baseball perspective, how are you going to remember this year? Because it feels like it's been a whirlwind just watching you, but what's it been like from your standpoint? What's going to stand out most for you?
Probably even more than just 2024 is just perseverance, right? Like you said earlier, I got dealt a couple bad hands, and I was able to, with help from others, I was able to break through and find that why, why I'm going to rehab on Monday morning at 7 a.m. to get the mobility back in my elbow, things like that. Like the idea that I was able to see all that through and make it all worth it. And, with a little help from some perseverance, that's probably the one. If I had to sum it up in one word, that would be it.
Final one for you. It's one we ask everybody. What's the game of baseball mean to you?
What does the game of baseball mean to me? That's a good one. Oh man, it's opened up so many opportunities for me in life. I've met so many amazing people. I've created so many amazing relationships, and I've been to some cool places. If I had to sum it up in a few words, yeah, it would just be the opportunity. Baseball to me is opportunity. It's you can play all over the world with this game. You can, play down the street. You can play at Yankee Stadium. Like, it's a very special game to me, and I'm glad that it's what I was chosen to do.
Well, we've been glad to be able to watch the journey unfold basically since day one of Dugout Stories. Really appreciate the time. Always appreciate getting to text you and text back and have some fun and get to catch up as well. Congrats on all the success this year and in the past, and continued success, and all the best in 2025 and beyond. And again, Erik, thanks so much for joining us here on the show.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks again to Erik Sabrowski for joining us this week, and thanks to all of you for downloading and listening. If you like this or any other episode, make sure to leave us a rating and review on your podcast app, as those actions obviously help spread the word about ADS. A tip of the cap as well to our platinum supporters, the Okotoks Dogs, Under the Lights Sports and Entertainment, and the Western Canadian Baseball League for their incredible generosity. It helps us cover costs like web hosting fees and online subscription services like newspapers.com, which I've spent a lot of time on recently. recently for some big historical pieces we're working on. For more on our amazing teammates and how to get involved with your organization, head to albertadugoutstories.com/supporters. Until next time, thank you for all of your support online, on social, and on air of Alberta Dugout Stories.